Despite shaking up the music scene in the late 80s and early 90s, the band Living Colour initially struggled to get noticed, and their debut album was a dud, at least on first arrival. Living Colour got caught up in the paradox of being black artists in rock and roll, even though rock and roll was rooted in blues and soul music. On top of that, the band's success drew questions about whether having friends in high places led to them having a breakthrough in their career. In a strange twist though, one of the world's biggest pop artists proved to be the saving grace for the band. Today, let's talk about the unusual rise of Living Colour. The roots of Living Colour begin with guitarist Vernon Reid, who was born in London, England to West Indian parents. His family soon relocated to New York City, and Reid's earliest influences included Lord Kitchener and the Mighty Sparrow, all the way to James Brown and the Dave Clark Five. He later got interested in guitarist Jeff Beck, Eric Clapton, as well as Carlos Santana and jazz innovators John Coltrane and Charlie Parker. He even talked in one interview about being hugely influenced by Sex Pistols, hearing them for the first time at an all-black party, a group of DJs calling themselves the Rock and Roll Outlaws, who played albums by the Funkadelics and James Brown, in addition to Susie and the Banshees and, of course, Sex Pistols. By the early 80s, Reid was making a name for himself as an accomplished guitar player in both the post-punk and progressive jazz scenes. He was a member of the group Decoding Society while also forming his own band in 1983, which eventually morphed into Living Colour. It was by 85 Reid left Decoding Society, choosing to focus on his own group while also forming an organization called the BRC, or Black Rock Coalition. That was a non-profit that fought music censorship, broke down racial stereotypes in rock, and promoted black artists. It was early in Reid's career he kept running into the same issue over and over again. He met amazing black musicians who just couldn't get noticed by radio programmers or record labels. So he decided to start the group, and by 1990, the BRC boasted 30 artists and nearly 200 individual members. The BRC was also instrumental in helping formulate the classic lineup of Living Colour, as we'll discuss in a bit. Rolling Stone, in their profile on the band in 1990, highlighted Reid's goal with Living Colour, stating, and I quote, "Reid had a clear idea of what he wanted Living Colour to be, a full-tilt rock band celebrating the continuing vitality and enduring promise of Robert Johnson, Billie Holiday, Bo Diddley, Sly Stone, Ornette Coleman, and Bad Brains, to name but a few, with the music and volume of Led Zeppelin." The band's lineup, in addition to Reid, included lead vocalist Cory Glover, drummer Will Calhoun, and bassist Muzz Skillings. The band's drummer Calhoun was a graduate of the Berklee College of Music in Boston. He worked with Jaco Postorious and toured with Harry Belafonte. Meanwhile, bassist Muzz Skillings was from Queens and played salsa, jazz, and rock in a variety of bands growing up before attending City College studying music. It was shortly before joining Living Colour he led a cover band named Muzz and also met Reid through the Black Rock Coalition. It was during the early days of Living Colour that Skillings at one point contemplated becoming a New York City firefighter, but abandoned his plans once the band started to gain some momentum. The group's vocalist Cory Glover was a student of Dowling College in Long Island and served as a DJ at the college radio station, in addition to some brief acting roles, including landing a spot in the Oliver Stone film Platoon. Glover was given the opportunity to join Reid's band after he attended a birthday party for a mutual friend, and Reid was impressed by Glover singing Happy Birthday. While Glover didn't join the band through the Black Rock Coalition, he could relate to the organization's message. Living Colour soon started gigging at CBGBs, Northeast clubs, and the college circuit. While they drew in big audiences and, according to Reid, label people seemed to love the band, they were met with the same response again and again. "Hey, I love it. Hey, I think it's a good band with good songs, but I cannot market it." But then the band landed perhaps the biggest break of their career, or maybe the second biggest break of their career, when Reid, who had already made a name for himself in the New York music scene, auditioned for Mick Jagger's solo album, Primitive Cool. The Stones frontman was so impressed with the guitarist that he agreed to attend one of the band's shows at CBGB's. Also in the audience that night was guitarist Jeff Beck. Jagger enlisted Reid to play on the solo record Primitive Cool, but Reid wouldn't play as part of his touring act as he was committed to Living Colour. Reid told Louder Sound the thinking the night his band played CBGBs in front of two legends, remembering, "Before we went on stage, one of our managers told me, 'He's here.' I didn't tell the rest of the band and just tried to put his presence out of my mind." Jagger ended up producing a collection of demos for the band, and just then, because of the band's connection with the Stones frontman, the offers from record labels started pouring in. Reid remarked, "But just the idea that it takes a Mick Jagger is a commentary on how our system works." Living Colour soon nabbed a deal with Epic Records, and Reid remarked to Louder Sound, "We had even been considering the possibility of making records independently, but Jagger's belief in us opened up a lot of doors." Living Colour also found some high-profile supporters around this time in their career, including MTV's Kurt Loder and Rolling Stone writer David Fricke. The band's first album for Epic was 1988's Vivid. Reid chose the title, remarking how he loved the word and wanted something that was going to grab people's attention. Produced by Talking Heads and Ramones producer Ed Stadium, the record also had 2 tracks that were produced by Jagger, including Which Way to America and Glamour Boys. But the record was not an immediate success. In fact, it took a while to break. A lot of the press around the time of Vivid's release remarked how the band was too difficult to pigeonhole for radio programmers. The Boston Globe wrote, "Even Reid's collaborations with Mick Jagger probably won't grant this band easy access to the airwaves." The first single released from the record was Middleman, which got some light airplay on MTV and some airplay on major LA rock station KLOS. The members remarked how since Jimi Hendrix, it was hard for black rock artists to get airplay on rock radio, whose playlists were largely dominated by white artists. Living Colour also struggled to get much airplay on black-owned radio stations. There were a few reasons. In the mid-60s, pop radio stations were instrumental in helping artists on Motown and the Atlantic labels get airtime, and freeform rock stations were key in exposing artists such as Jimi Hendrix and Sly and the Family Stone to larger audiences. But much like today, radio became more corporate and their playlists became much tighter. Even when Michael Jackson had a huge hit on pop radio with Beat It, which featured an Eddie Van Halen guitar solo, rock radio largely ignored it. The same with Aerosmith's reimagining of their song Walk This Way with Run DMC. In fact, back in 1988, it was all too common to hear radio programmers justifying excluding Living Colour from their playlists by noting that they were too R&B based for album-oriented rock and too rock for urban contemporary radio. It was a quagmire the band was in. In fact, rock station WRIF-FM, their program director remarked to the Detroit Free Press how Beat It by Michael Jackson and tracks from Prince's Purple Rain album were met with negative reactions even when played on their more progressive rock shows. Even stations who were fans of Living Colour, like LA station KNAC, didn't even play the band initially, with DJ Tom Marshall telling the LA Times, "Vernon Reid is a great guitar player, but the album falls into too many gray areas for us to play it." Basically, radio programmers, labels, and artists were each blaming one another. Radio programmers claimed that record labels weren't properly promoting their black artists, while the labels claimed that radio programmers were too close-minded, and the artists themselves blamed everyone else. The press, of course, focused a ton on the band's skin color. Of course, the members of Living Colour were largely annoyed with the focus on such trivial things, with Reid telling the Detroit Free Press, "The fact that we have to talk on black terms and white terms at all is kind of crazy. If you'd stop and let rational thought take over, it'd happen. The real issue is what do you have to say and how are you going to say it? The music, not the color." In an ironic twist, though, the band got some criticism, according to the Los Angeles Daily News, for not addressing the issues plaguing the black community. Glover remarked to the same paper, "That's the basic conundrum of being a black American. A lot of our songs are about the ambivalence about being black. That thing of being American but not American." The band's label did add that the group had a strong following in the press, they had good play on college radio, and they were attracting the type of people who were into groups with a fresh attitude like Midnight Oil. The label was also quick to point out that they weren't marketing the band in so-called heavy metal circles because it may narrow the band's audience. So with all the issues the band was dealing with, their label and their manager Jim Grant were dumbfounded. They didn't know what to do. One college rep for the group's label, according to Rolling Stone, apparently tried to conceal the band's race by not including a photo of the group when giving out albums to student newspapers. Unable to pigeonhole Living Colour, this also translated over to the type of bands that Living Colour were sharing the bill with, including Megadeth, the Ramones, and the Swans. It took almost a year to finally break their debut album thanks to the single Cult of Personality that was released to FM stations by early 1989. By the beginning of the year, the song was added to major market radio playlists and pop-oriented stations as well. But it was MTV that was largely credited for helping the band by playing the video in heavy rotation. In 1988, MTV was going through a bit of a shakeup. They brought in a new vice president of programming who had worked at Arista Records, a guy named Abby Nowich. Nowich was pretty open about his musical policy, stating, "I like hit songs, we want to get behind those that will be big stars." Former VJ Adam Curry remarked that there was a lot of wheeling dealing going on between MTV programming and the record industry, stating, "If you guys give us a certain video premiere, we'll throw this other piece of band you have into the buzzbin." You have to remember, around 1988, MTV wasn't the only channel that was showing music videos, as now they had competition as well. Steve Backer, who is a promotion executive at Epic Records, stated in the book I Want My MTV, "The fact is, I got Living Colour on MTV by threatening to withhold a new Michael Jackson video. The Smooth Criminal video was about to come out and we had to decide who'd get the world premiere." Cory Glover even remarked in the same book, "We owe most of our career to Michael Jackson." With MTV on board by December of '88, sales for Vivid started to take off, and on April 1st, 1989, the band nabbed a high-profile slot appearing on Saturday Night Live. By the end of the year, the album went double platinum. Cult of Personality, the band's most well-known song, was written before the band even nabbed a recording deal, with it being written at a rehearsal space in Brooklyn. Reid told Louder Sound, "The message of the song, saying Cult of Personality, was about celebrity, but on a political level. It asked what made us follow these individuals who were larger than life, yet still human beings." The song proved to be a crossover hit, peaking at number 13 on the Hot 100 chart in America and number 9 on the mainstream rock tracks chart. Living Colour followed up Cult of Personality with another big single in Glamour Boys. Another crossover hit, peaking at number 31 and 26 on the same charts. Living Colour's feelings on urban life were best captured on the song Which Way to America, which, believe it or not, was inspired by a trip to Japan. Reid explained how he was taking a boat tour in Japan and saw a row of shacks and noticed how one shack had the glow of a television in it, and it was at that moment he realized how the industrialized world can literally be anywhere. It's a commentary on the America shown on television and the America in real life, as Reid put it. The band's newfound popularity by the end of '89 resulted in even Van Halen frontman Sammy Hagar singing the band's praises, and Rolling Stone reporting that the frontman had expressed his desire to produce the band's follow-up album. Bassist Muzz Skillings later reported to Spin magazine about MTV's role in the band's success. "MTV probably prayed for a black rock band to take the heat off." If you guys remember, almost 7 years prior, MTV had been long criticized for ignoring black artists. There's even a video on MTV's YouTube channel with David Bowie criticizing the network on this issue. The success of the group's debut album was further helped by a 2-year non-stop tour that saw the band play all over the globe, as well as headlining their own small club shows. The band ended up landing a huge opening spot for the Rolling Stones as part of their Steel Wheels tour. The band was soon showered with accolades, including Rolling Stone's Readers' poll of Best New Band, a Grammy for Cult of Personality, and their debut album going double platinum. Living Colour were astounded by their success, with Reid telling Rolling Stone in 1990, "I was in a hotel room in Florida and I heard Casey Kasem come on the radio and talk about us on American Top 40. That was mind-blowing, especially when you think about where we're coming from." However, some people pointed to the band's connection to Mick Jagger as being solely responsible for them being successful. Will Calhoun expressed his frustrations to Rolling Stone, remarking, "In the beginning, everyone wanted to hear the story that we were 4 ghetto boys playing outside on 125th Street at some broken down store, and Mick Jagger came out of the store and saw us one day, bought us all fresh instruments, and we became great. We come from working class families." That does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again on Rock and Roll True Stories. Take care.